Perilous Times. And we are truly
no man coming unto the Father except they come through He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. I said that He is the way, I know that He is the truth, I said that He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. I know that He is the way, I know that He is the truth, I said that He is the way, the truth, the life. Listen to me now. No man coming unto the Father except they come through He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. Listen to me. No man coming unto the Father except they come through He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. I said that He is the way, I know that He is the truth, I said that He is the way, He is the truth, the life. I know that He is the way, I know that He is the truth, I know that He is the way, the truth, the life. And Philip asked me, said, Lord, can you show us the Father? And that'll be enough for me. He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. And Jesus answered, don't you know I'm the Father, and that the Father's in me? He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. Yeah, I said that He is the way, I said that He is the truth, I said that He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. I said He is the way, I know that He is the truth, I said He is the way, the truth, the life. Oh yes He is, I know that He is the way, I said He is the truth, I know that He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. I said that He is the way, I know that He is the truth, I said that He is the way, the truth, the life.
welcome back to The Way, the Truth, and the Life. My name is George Boyd Jr., and I'm the minister here at the Wheeling Church of Christ in Greenville, Texas. So if you are ever in the area, please come by and visit us, as we are a Bible church and we do Bible things Bible ways. And so today we're going to continue in this discussion of perilous times, And we are truly living in perilous times. We have now had another mass shooting. And this one hurts real bad because it was students at a school. And that one, to me, is the one that hurts extremely bad because, once again, we have the devil going after our children. The devil knows no mercy. And he is doing everything that he can possibly do to sway the masses into doing things that we should not even be thinking about doing. And the reality of the situation as it applies to the issue that has happened with the mass shooting is, I'm not going to speak on this particular issue today. And the reason why I'm not going to speak on it today, at least not in depth, is we should be right now mourning with those who mourn. We should not be sitting around politicizing this, sitting around pointing fingers, sitting around blaming, sitting around trying to figure out ways to further someone's agenda. We should merely be mourning those children, praying for their families, praying for some relief, and just sitting back. And if we're truly concerned, let's let all of the evidence come out. And then if people want to start having discussions, we can have some discussions, of which I will be, I will be doing some talking on this. But I truly believe it's not a matter to be discussed yet because we don't know all of the issues. We don't know everything. We can't be blaming anyone. There's evil people in the world. We have to stop blaming people. for other people being evil. There are just people who make evil decisions, and we're going to have to accept that sooner than later. But in the meanwhile, I would rather spend my time just imploring people to pray for the families. Don't worry about those children. They are heaven bound. That is the one thing that we can say unequivocally. They are with God and Jesus. They are in the heavenly realm. So we just have to continue to pray and keep living for God and keep trying to do that which is right. And so today, this is why we're going to continue on as we talk about perilous times, because I truly believe that we are in perilous times, because we see all of these things that are going on around us, and it just seems like utter insanity when we think about it. But at the end of the day, God told us about these types of things. God told us about these types of things and how they were going to happen. That there would be perilous times. There would be perilous times because the hearts of men will wax worse and worse. And I truly believe this is what we're seeing play out before our eyes. When you go back, as we get to 2 Timothy chapter 3, Paul tells Timothy, he says, but know this, that in the last days, perilous times will come. We are once again in a season of perilous times. And we're seeing more so than ever, I believe, especially because of the kind of technology we possess, that we are watching truly men and women. When the Bible mentions men in this particular context, it's talking about mankind. Men will be lovers of themselves, and we've dealt with the whole lovers of themselves things. Lovers of money. They will be boasters. They will be boasters. They will be proud. We've dealt with all of these things. Well, today we're going to continue in verse 2. And what we're going to deal with today is we're going to try to get our way down to verse 4. And we're going to start dealing with the rest of these. And I think as we continue to go on through this study, you're going to see kind of even what's going on with man, in a sense. You know, what's going on with man? What's going on? Why are we seeing so many things happen to people? And the problem is that these things keep happening to not just, people who are involved, but they're happening to innocent people. Well, the Bible is right. Men are lovers of themselves. Men and women are lovers of themselves. And sin does not discriminate, contrary to what people try to propagate. Sin does not discriminate. Sin doesn't care if you're black, white, or Hispanic. Evil does not care if you're black, white, or Hispanic. The devil does not care. It is all about his will and his way rather than God's. And so he is after people. He is after the church, but in particular, he is definitely trying to sway people from believing in the goodness and the righteousness of God. And so we get to another word here, and we're gonna keep working our way down, but I want you to see something that kind of plays into where we are today. There is a word here. The next word that we were on in this thing is blasphemy. It says that people will be lovers of themselves. They will be blasphemers. The word blasphemos means to be irreverent towards what is held to be sacred, means to defame. This is why the meaning, and this is where you see a lot of people in our society today, they're very blasphemous. And in very simple terms, biblically, it means to speak against God. And there are many people who speak against God with their actions and their words. To be a kind of person who would think that it is okay to do anything but mourn these children and then try to use God in the sense of, yes, God does not like the spilling of innocent blood, while at the same time, it all depends upon the innocent blood that is being spilled by the person who mentions it. But I digress. But people speak against God when they speak against that which is good. When they speak against that which is good, that which is righteous. No reverence towards God, or no reverence towards human life, no respect for human life or anything. And so people will speak against that which is right. And we're watching this right now play out right before our eyes. We have people who are speaking out, not for what is right, but speaking out against what is right. Speaking out against what is right. And we're seeing a lot of this type of behavior in the church today and amongst the people of God today, where people, if it goes against something that they want to do, whether it be of God or not, they will speak against it. They will speak against what is right. People are very blasphemous in a sense. And this is why when you think about proud and blasphemers, it goes together, because people who are proud, they will be boastful and they will put their pride on display. And not only will they put their pride on display, but they will speak against that which is right in the eyes of God. They will be blasphemers. And the next one, not only will they be blasphemers in the last days, but they will be disobedient. They will be disobedient to parents. I want to really dig into this, because this to me says and speaks volumes to some of the things like what we have witnessed with these children over the last couple of days. But we have where this young man killed his grandmother, the mother of his mother or father. And when we think about people who are disobedient to parents, the Bible is telling us, you think about Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. One of the things that came out in the 10 Commandments is that God said, honor your mother and your father, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. Well, we are in a time where children do not honor their mothers and their fathers. And of course, if they're not honoring mothers and fathers, they're definitely not honoring grandmothers and grandfathers. They don't honor adults. We see where people grow up and have been taught right in the Lord. And I don't know what this young man has been taught, but I think just from a moral perspective, we see where younger folk get taught by older folk, but will not like the teaching and go against the teaching of the adult and go out and do all kinds of evil. I think it is very powerful when you think about honoring a mother and a father, because the thought process is that the mother and the father is teaching that child what is right in the Lord. And in a lot of cases, even if it's not necessarily what's right in the Lord, there should still be some moral teaching. There should still be some moral teaching on that which is right from wrong, so that children can process information and know how to identify when they're doing wrong or when someone else is doing wrong, so they don't do those types of things. But we have to be able to, as a people, we have to be able to identify those types of things. We have to be able to help our children to identify these types of things. I want to get to a view of where I can see to where we can see the word of God. But we have to be those types of people to where, we teach our children, we raise our children in the way that they should go so that when they get older, they will not depart from it. But we are also saying that even though some people teach their children right from wrong, Christian parents raise their children in the Lord, that at the end of the day, when a child gets a certain age, they have to decide and make up their own mind on what they're going to do. They have to be now held accountable for doing right and wrong. But we are seeing a ton of people, a generation that is totally getting away from not only biblical teaching, but moral teaching, getting away from what is right. We're watching children who grew up, resented what was taught, grow up and still know what's right, but then say because of their certain surroundings that they can't go by what's right. And so they have to put their frustrations out on other people. They have to vent their frustrations. And so we're watching an entire generation, whether we realize it or not. We are watching an entire generation of people, young folk especially, who are just disobedient to the teachings of their parents. They're just disobedient to it. And not only are they disobedient to it, but they live against it. They speak against it. They live against it. Their actions are against it. And it's a crying shame. And so as Paul continues on, he's also going to get into what I like to call the four uns. He's going to deal with being unthankful, unholy, unloving, and unforgiving. And I think this is very, very powerful because we live in a world where people just don't appreciate what they have because they are always focused on what someone else has. And this is something that has been, it's being proliferated by many. Folk always have their eyes on what someone else has. When you think about being ungrateful, it's a feeling or expression, not feeling or expressing gratitude. And when you think about people who have bad dispositions, people who do bad things, you think about when we deal with these four uns, they will typically fall into these categories. Ungrateful, someone who is ungrateful, they're unthankful, they're basically without thanks. They don't think they have anything to be thankful for. And so because they don't have anything to be thankful for, they walk around without grace. They're unpleasant people. They're mean people. They're ill-spirited people. Why? Because they feel like they have nothing to be thankful for. And, for some people, life isn't enough. The opportunity that no matter how they were raised, that they have the ability. As I try to tell people sometimes, you have to break the cycle. A lot of people, they won't spend a lot of time telling you like what happened to them, how they were raised and who did this to them and who did that to them. They spend a lot of time doing that. But if they spent more time thinking about that they have the opportunity to break generational curses, that they have the opportunity to do what's right, to change their own life, if they would just turn their life over to God and do things that are right and don't do the wrong things that people in their past have done, they could change their whole life. But when you walk around and you've been taught that the world owes you something, The world owes you something. And if the world doesn't give you what you want, then you're going to take it out on the world. Then what gives? What gives? How do you restrain? How do you get a person like that to see reason? When they in their own minds, they don't see a reason to do what is right. They don't see a reason to do it. And so when you get people like that, hold on a second here. So when you get people like that, I mean, how do you help a person who feels like they have nothing to be thankful for? This is why the times get perilous, because when you get people with that kind of mindset, there's nothing. I mean, how do you know there's nothing they won't do? You think about it. Let's keep going here. Not only does he say unthankful, but then he gives us another word, which I think is very powerful. He says, look, unholy. Unholy. We are watching a great falling away in our society, a great falling away in our country and our society as a whole, all over the world. People are falling away from God. Unholy is lacking the characteristics of moral or ritual purity. Context often emphasizes one over the other, as in, you think about that God created things in the Old Testament to be used for worship. And I've mentioned this before. I think this is very powerful because when you think about holy, these are things that you kind of separate. You separate these things for the use or for God to use. Basically, something that is, you have morals. You keep yourself unstained from the world. And so many people, and Paul is talking about the church first, or people who fall away in the church. One of the issues with people in the church, they become unholy because they keep themselves stained with the world. They start to join in with the world. And you think about what Paul said in the book of Romans, which I think is very powerful. Paul wants us to, he told them to use their bodies as a living sacrifice. He says, present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Are we seeing this? Notice what he says. He says, holy. Holy. Holy means pure. Keep yourself to where God can use you. But he's saying that the times will become perilous because people will be unholy. They will be unholy. They will be the types of people that they will not keep themselves unstained or separated from the world, but in actuality, they will be in the world and of the world, doing everything the world does. The world system is an enemy to God. Make no mistake about it. God does not like sin. God does not like the spilling of innocent blood. God does not like murder of any sort. Out of the womb or in the womb. God does not like these types of things. But people, they are so, we are witnessing people be so unholy that it is spellbinding almost in a sense. You think about, not only does he say they're going to be unholy, but this one is really powerful. He says they're going to be unloving. They're going to be unloving. Lacking in affection for others, natural affection between family members, between friends, natural affection as it applies to humanity itself. Ask yourself, This has nothing to do with being Republican, as some of these people are saying. This should have nothing to do with politics. We are watching people. We are watching the closest thing to demons that we can see. That someone would have such disregard for life, they would go in and slaughter 19 innocent children and 2 innocent teachers. You have to be unloving. No natural affection whatsoever. We should have a natural affection as human beings for one another. Just because God made us, just because we respect life itself, we ought to have love for one another in some form or another. But when people are unloving, they are hard-hearted, no regard for others whatsoever. What do? How do you deal with a person that is unloving? How do you deal with people like that? A lot of people, they think that we can legislate. You can't legislate love. There is no law that will stop people from being evil. People think, well, if you take away the guns, if you take away the weapons, there'll be no more killings or there'll be less killings. First of all, criminals don't go by the law. You disarm all the innocent citizens and they will not be able to defend themselves from criminals. They will not be able to defend themselves even from rogue governments. People will not be able to defend themselves in no form of fashion from evil, unloving folk. Not even the law will be able to do that. You could take away all the weapons you want to. People would figure out a way to make mud balls to kill folk. They would make weapons out of sticks. I mean, this is what people have done in history. They will find ways to make weapons that will be able to express their unloving attitude towards others. They will. There's nothing that people can do about it. What the goal is, yes, the law is for the lawless, but the law is not to punish those who are lawful. Make no mistake about it. That is not what the law is for. The goal of the Christian is to try to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ throughout the world so that people will change their minds. So that people will change their minds. So that they will understand that these types of things are wrong. We have to be able to do that, or at least try to do that, so that we can help people to be saved. We have to be able to help people. Because if we don't show people the love of God, then the world won't know what love is. It just won't know what love is. Because not only, as Paul says, he tells Timothy, not only will these people be unloving, but he says something else. He says they will be unforgiving. And I think this is very powerful. It says, incapable of gaining the goodwill of, especially through any formal means of peacemaking. And let's break it down to a simple word, irreconcilable. That people will be unforgiving. That in other words, people will always remember. They will always throw in your face the evils of your past, or they'll hold each other accountable for the evils of the past. You think about one of the worst things we have going on in America right now. A lot of people say, well, racism is the worst thing we have going in America. I disagree. Number one, I think sin is the worst thing we have going on in America. But not only is sin the worst thing that's going on in America, let's kind of hone in on some specific issues. Because we got some people who will say, well, sin is the worst thing going on. Racism is the worst thing going on in America. I don't think racism is the worst thing going on in America. I think the unforgiveness of racism is the worst thing going on in America. We have a regime who does not want us to progress as a country and as human beings. We have a regime that continues to want to use things of the past to shape the present. And I'm not saying that the past doesn't shape the present, but I do believe that if we could understand and hone in on Romans 15, what's told to us in Romans 15:4, I think it is, but we have to realize that the things of the past, look at what the Bible says. For whatever things were written before were written for our learning, that through the patience and the comfort of the scriptures that we may have hope. And so what the Bible was simply saying there is that these things of the Old Testament that were written for their time, that they should look at those things and learn from them, because they have now become scripture. Of course, the Old Testament was scripture before the letters of the New Testament were in the minds of history. But he's saying, look back on that history. Look back on what was written. Look back on what the prophets wrote, so that you can learn from what they wrote. Learn not to make the mistakes that some of them made, so that you can have patience and you can have hope and understand that God is a sovereign God. God is a forgiving God, and God is a God who keeps his promises. So we have to be the kinds of people to be able to look at those things. See, because even our own American history, we have to look back on racism and not continue to perpetuate it, but look at where we've come from. Do we still have strides to make? We will always have strides to make, because there will always be evil people. There will always be racist people, but we have to stop. We have to stop calling an entire country racist, an entire race of people racist, and we need to boil it down to whoever those people are. Are they going to have factions? Yes, they are. Well, there are factions everywhere. There will always be racist white people, racist black people, racist Asian, racist Hispanic. There will always be those types of people. But if we can be the types of people that put God first and be Christians first, then we can be the kinds of people that lessen the effects of racism. And we can be the kinds of people to where race doesn't matter in judgment. Race doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And that's where we have to be those type of people. But if we cannot forgive, and we are watching folk in the church be unforgiving, you can't always talk about the problem. You have to get to the point to where you start talking about the solution. Not only talking about the solution and discussing the solution, you have to start living the solution. But if you're the type of person that's always saying, oh, it's because I'm white. Oh, it's because I'm black. Oh, it's because you're unforgiving. And some people are saying, I'm just speaking facts. No, you're not speaking facts. You're speaking through emotion because something didn't go the way that you want. And so you have to find someone to blame. Just like these people are doing right now. We have a tragedy on our hands, and we got folk who are running around crying, trying to figure out someone to blame rather than looking at the person who did the shooting. We got to get some facts, because at the end of the day, people's agendas and their unforgiveness is shining through, and they're using their hatred for other people to try to use a tragedy to further their hate and their purpose. It is a crying shame of what we're watching. And we're seeing this from people in the church. You want to know why there's perilous times? When people in the church cannot even exhibit forgiveness, then what do we think is going to happen in the world? Then what do we think is going to happen in the world? Let's continue on. Paul not only uses the word unforgiveness, but Paul uses the word, he says they will be slanderers. Goes right into what we're talking about, because typically people who are unforgiving, they are slanderous people. The word slanderers, it's kind of funny. The word slanderers comes from the Greek word diabolos. Diabolos. You know what diabolos means? You ever heard the word diablo? It means devil. It means devil. Slanderer. The devil slanders us. The devil is trying to tell God that we are not worthy to be saved. What is man that God is so mindful of him? What is man? Satan slanders man. And we see where man slanders man. Always saying things. It says, look, characterized by attacking the reputation of another by slander. This is why the devil is called the slanderer, because why he's the devil. He's a slanderer. He likes to attack our reputation. He wants God to understand that we are not who we say we are. And I love when you look at the book of Job. I've mentioned this before, but I think it is so powerful when you think about when God brings up Job. Satan says something very funny about Job. He says to God, and let me see if I can find the verse here. Look at verse 9. The Bible says, when God says, have you considered my servant Job? I want you to see what Satan answers back. He's a slanderer. Satan answered the Lord and said, does Job fear God for nothing? In other words, oh God, I know why Job fears you. It's pretty obvious, God, why Job fears you. It's simple. You've done so much for him. You've blessed him so immensely, God. There's no wonder that there's no wonder why Job is serving you. He fears you, God, because of all the things that you've done for him. He says, look, have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands and his possessions, and have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. He was slandering Job's character. Slandering Job, trying to sully his reputation. And we see this is what people do when they're unforgiving. They slander people. We got a cancel culture out here. We got a culture that cancels, that will go and dig up any and everything from your past. when it wants to disqualify you from something. Slander at every turn, every opportunity. This is what people do. And this is what Paul talks about as he's continuing on here talking about these perilous times. Well, this is why the times are perilous. Because we are living in a time of blasphemous, disobedient to parent people, unthankful, unholy, unloving, and they are slanderers. And look at this. We're going to get ready to close out here, but look at what it says. They are without self-control, unrestrained by convention or morality. Legislation will not stop evil. It won't. It will not. No matter what we think, it will not. And when people think like this, all they want is total control. All they want over people is total control. Because you better believe what they're basically trying to say to us on a grand scheme. Y'all have no self-control. So we need to control you. You have no restraint. So we need to restrain you. Now, the problem is they're not going to just control those who don't have self-control. The goal is to control those who they want to control, who actually have self-control and don't want to be controlled by them. But we are watching these people. They're without self-control. The shooter without self-control. The people who we're watching in our media who are speaking out without knowing the facts and blaming other people who, in the grand scheme of things, have nothing to do with what this individual did. They're out of control too. They don't have enough self-control to first hear the facts and then speak. To hear the facts and then speak. And then put the blame where it deserves to be. On the person who committed the crime. But we're watching a compound of an attitude that is coming from top down, bottom up. And when I say top down, not from God, but coming from people who are supposed to be helping people, and from the bottom up, from the people who they're supposed to be helping. We're just watching people just totally lose it out here if we pay attention. They're losing it because there is a lack of morality. There's a lack of morality in our country. There's a lack of morality. I hate to say it, but there's a lack of morality in our government. We got people who care for the kids who got killed in the school, but they don't care for kids getting killed in the womb. How do you do that in the same breath? How do you say innocent blood not spilled outside the womb, but it's okay to spill in the womb? It's insanity when you think about it. But these people, they have no self-control. They have no self-control. That's why they slander. That's why they're unforgiving. They can't control their emotions. They can't control their feelings. They want their agenda to get across. Last two words, and we're going to be done. It says, next, they will be brutal. They are brutal, wild, and menacing savages. Savages. Is this not savage what we're witnessing? 19 children savagely slain. 2 adults. But not just savagery as it pertains to what's going on with those children, but savagery as it pertains to now what's going on in our media. When they say things like Republicans, do you realize they're not talking about politicians only? They're talking about people who identify as Republican, conservative, Christian. They are trying to turn millions of people against one another. Millions. It is savage. People don't understand, man. It is savage to do what's being done. These children have been slain. And these politicians are so savage that they have more to say about a group of people than they do about the kids and the 2 adults who were slain. That is savage. The Perilous Times. See, people getting slain, whether people realize it, this is the collateral damage of perilous times, because it is the times, it is the mindset of people that is causing all of this hurt and pain. That's what's happening. And so we are watching people who are carrying on like savage beasts. They see an opportunity and they are pouncing on it like a lion pounces on injured prey. Savage. For people to be speaking out in the way that they are speaking out, it is savage, people. And we ought not be applauding people like this. We ought not be applauding and joining in with them. We ought to be telling them, shame on you. Shame on you that your only thought is your political affiliation and your agenda. Anybody with common sense knows you can take the guns away from people. Look at Chicago. Look at Chicago. Crime is on the rise. The shootings didn't stop. They took the guns out of the hands of the citizens, but the criminals don't go by the law. They don't care. I'm sorry, but guns don't kill people. People kill people with guns, knives, and anything else you give them. Guns, knives, and anything you don't give them. You don't even have to give it to them. They will find ways. It is savage to try to take advantage of these types of issues. People need to shut their mouth. Stop being savage beast. Pray and mourn with those who mourn. But this is it. This is why we are having these issues. Last issue. Lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. And I'm actually going to come back. I want to pick up right here when I come back tomorrow. And I'm going to see, I may be able to get my brother Mike Bonner to come on tomorrow. And I may come on, if possible, I'm going to come on around 11 o'clock. And we're going to deal with this. We're going to pick up right here from these lovers of pleasures rather than lovers of God, because I think this deserves some very specific talk. Because we are watching people in our government who hate God, people in our society who hate God, even people in churches who don't want to admit it, but they absolutely hate God. And you say, why do you say that, preacher? Because of their actions. when I see the actions of people, when I see people who are, I want to go back to these right here: unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good. In other words, haters, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. You better believe that we have an issue going on in our country, and this is what's going on in America. The perilous times are coming from the spirit of people in the world. This spirit of Satan that is going around, and it is just filling the minds of people. We're going to pick up right here tomorrow. This is going to be a great place to pick up. We're going to pick up right here in verse 4, traitors. We're going to pick up right here, at the end of verse 3, and we're going to go through verse 4. We'll probably go all the way through verse 5 with Mike Bonner. So this is where we're going to pick up tomorrow. But that's going to be my time for today. Once again, please don't join in with these people. Pray for these children. Pray for these children. And not these children. These children have gone on to be with the Lord. Pray for the families of these children. Pray for their families. Don't speak on things, because these people are hurting these people who are mourning right now. Instead, mourn with these people as they mourn. Pray for these people. And don't listen to these people talking about empty prayers. Those prayers are empty from those people because they're empty. Because they see an agenda that they want to take advantage of. No. The prayers of the righteous availeth much. Let us continue to pray. Let us continue to mourn. And let us continue to stay with God. And may God bless you, and may God keep you. Peace.